She hit a disabled veteran service dog with her car, and instead of apologizing, she fined him and called the dog dangerous. Karen, the HOA president, thought her title made her untouchable, even above federal law. But this Marine knew how to fight, and when the justice system got involved, the tables turned fast. Just wait until you hear how this explosive showdown ended and why, in the end, justice bit back hard. The morning had that eerie stillness, not peaceful, just unnatural. The sky was too clear. No breeze. No birds. The neighborhood, tucked behind manicured hedges and strict HOA guidelines, looked like a painting someone forgot to finish. Matthew Green stood on his porch in a hoodie and cargo pants, one hand gripping the leash attached to Ruckus' vest. The golden retriever sat alert beside him, scanning the quiet cul-de-sac like always. Ruckus wasn't just a dog. He was Matthew's lifeline, trained to detect the warning signs of PTSD spirals, interrupt night terrors, and lead him out of stores when migraines hit. They were a team. They had been since Matthew came home from Fallujah with more scars inside than out. HOA meetings always made his skin crawl. Fluorescent lights, smug neighbors, loud voices, rules about grass height and mailboxes, but Ruckus made them bearable. He grounded Matthew, slowed his pulse, reminded him he was still here, still fighting, just a different kind of war now. Today wasn't a meeting day, thank God. Just a walk. A normal, quiet walk before the Florida sun turned everything into a frying pan. Ruckus' tail wagged once as Matthew unclipped the gate. He always looked forward to the morning loop around the block. Same hydrants, same squirrels, same neighbors nodding behind their tinted windows. They had barely taken 10 steps when something shattered the stillness. An engine. Not just a car starting, but a growl, sudden and aggressive, followed by the screech of tires. Matthew's body tensed. His instincts screamed. His left eye twitched from an old blast injury. Then thud star. It wasn't loud or cinematic. It was the dull, sickening sound of something soft being hit by something hard. Ruckus yelped, high-pitched, broken. Matthew snapped around. Time slowed. A white Lexus SUV had come up over the edge of the sidewalk, its front tire now where Matthew's boot had just been. He stared in disbelief as the vehicle didn't brake, didn't reverse, didn't even stutter. Behind the wheel sat Karen Whitmore, HOA president. Mid-50s. Blonde highlights. Pearl earrings. At 8 in the morning, one hand on the steering wheel, the other holding a phone to her ear. Like she hadn't just committed a crime. She didn't look horrified. She looked annoyed, like she'd hit a trash bin left too close to the curb. Her lips moved, forming a slow, sarcastic phrase. That much shouldn't be here. Then she rolled past them, tires bumping off the curb and returning to the asphalt, like nothing happened. Matthew didn't move. His heart punched his ribs. His brain couldn't decide if it was back in Kandahar or somewhere worse. Ruckus lay motionless on the concrete, one leg bent at an unnatural angle, his chest rising in short, pained bursts. The leash slipped from Matthew's hand. Ruckus, he choked. Nothing came back. No bark. No whine. Just a soft, desperate wheeze. It was like the world paused. Even the air stopped moving. A dog barked 2 streets over. A sprinkler hissed behind someone's hedge. But right there, on that slice of HOA-regulated sidewalk, time had frozen. Matthew dropped to his knees, his hands hovering. Afraid to touch, afraid he'd make it worse. His voice cracked. I got you, buddy. Stay with me. I got you. No one came running. No doors swung open. No Karen returned to explain or apologize. Just Matthew, a war-hardened Marine, on his knees beside his partner, crushed in front of the house they'd lived in for 4 years. And for one long, unbearable moment, he felt more helpless than he ever had on a battlefield. It started with footsteps. One by one, screen doors creaked open. Curtains shifted. Phones were raised. By the second minute, 5 people stood on lawns or driveways, their faces twisted between concern and confusion. They didn't run to help. They hovered like spectators at a car crash. Matthew stayed on the ground, knees aching against the concrete. Not that he noticed. All his focus, every cell in his body was locked on Ruckus. The dog's breaths came fast, shallow. His back leg was bent sideways, bone threatening to pierce the skin. Blood seeped from somewhere under his belly, darkening his golden fur to rust. Somebody call animal services, a voice finally shouted. And 911. A teenager ran off, phone already to her ear. A woman gasped at the sight of the twisted leg. A man muttered, "Jesus," and stepped back like the sight might infect him. Matthew didn't look at them. His hands hovered an inch above Ruckus' body, fingers trembling. He didn't dare touch. He just whispered over and over like a prayer breaking into pieces. "He's a service dog. He's my service dog." She hit a federally protected animal. "He's a service dog." Ruckus whimpered just once. That sound stabbed deeper than any shrapnel ever had. First responders arrived 10 minutes later, though for Matthew, it felt like a year sitting in silence beside dying loyalty. The animal control van pulled up behind the patrol cruiser. A young officer stepped out, notepad in hand. He walked over slowly, cautiously, like he didn't know who needed help. When Matthew finally spoke, his voice was dry and low, almost a growl. "HOA President Karen Whitmore. White Lexus." She hit him and kept going. The officer blinked. "Karen Whitmore?" he repeated. Then, "Are you sure she saw the dog? Maybe it was an accident. Maybe she didn't notice." Matthew's head jerked up so fast, the cop took half a step back. "He had his vest on," Matthew snapped, eyes blazing. "Bright red. Says service animal on both sides. And we were on the sidewalk. Not the street. Not the grass. The sidewalk." The cop nodded slowly. Okay. He crouched, snapped some photos, measured skid marks, but the hesitation hadn't gone unnoticed. Matthew knew that look. He'd seen it in courtrooms and VA waiting rooms, the moment when someone's authority collided with inconvenience, and they chose comfort over justice. At the emergency veterinary hospital, everything moved in fast forward. Vets in blue scrubs. Machines beeping. Bright lights. Too many questions. Not enough answers. Matthew sat in a plastic chair with blood on his pants and numbness in his hands. After an hour, the surgeon came out with the scans. The words hit like bullets. Fractured femur. Internal bleeding. Possible nerve damage. Long recovery, and even then mobility might be permanently affected. Matthew couldn't breathe. Ruckus might never walk normally again. Might never work again. Might never be the same. The bill? $17,284 and climbing. Matthew had savings barely. Maybe a GoFundMe. But what price do you put on your reason to live? That night, drained and shaking, Matthew sat on the floor beside Ruckus' kennel, hand resting lightly on his fur as painkillers kept the dog unconscious. Then his phone buzzed. A neighbor had forwarded a screenshot. Karen had posted on the neighborhood's next door group. *PSA. Pets should not be off-leash or in HOA common areas. Accidents happen. *No remorse. No apology. Not even the decency to call him by name. Just a cold, passive-aggressive jab dressed up as a policy reminder. Matthew read it twice. 3 times. His blood boiled, but his fingers didn't tremble anymore. He looked down at Ruckus. The gentle rise and fall of his chest. Matthew didn't sleep. Sleep wasn't an option, not with the adrenaline still leaking through his veins like poison. Not with Ruckus lying there, barely moving, hooked to machines that beeped softly in the dim light of the fluorescent ICU unit. The glow of the vet's overnight room cast everything in a bluish haze, unreal. Like a dream you wished you could wake from. He sat in a plastic chair, spine straight, legs aching, eyes bloodshot. His left hand rested gently on Ruckus' side, feeling each shallow breath. His right hand gripped his phone like a weapon. The heart monitor beside them ticked on its rhythmic beeps like a metronome, counting down to something that wasn't sleep. He had pulled up the ADA website, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and read it 100 times before, back when Ruckus was certified, but now every line hit differently. He scrolled slowly, rereading clauses and parsing every word like it might be a bullet he could use. His thumb hovered, eyes burning. Somewhere in the distance, a nurse murmured into a phone, and a machine hummed. And then a sentence appeared. Bolded, clear, undeniable. Any harm caused to a service animal is legally equivalent to an assault on the individual with a disability and may be subject to federal criminal charges. Matthew blinked, reading it again, then again. He didn't move. The words echoed in his skull louder than anything else in the room, not maybe like a suggestion, but maybe like a promise. He set the phone down, rubbed his temples. He wasn't just furious, he was focused. This wasn't rage, it was clarity. For a second he looked at Ruckus. The dog was sedated, breathing steady but shallow. A white bandage wrapped around his ribs, another bracing his back leg, and 4 dripped painkillers into his veins. Matthew leaned in, voice low. You held the line for me. Now I hold it for you. He reached for his phone again, this time with purpose. No scrolling, no second-guessing. First call. VA counselor, emergency contact, direct line. He's been hit by an HOA president. I need to file incident documentation for ADA protections. I need it now. Second call. An ADA attorney from Jacksonville, the one whose number he'd kept in his wallet just in case. He never thought he'd need it. He needed it now. Third call. The U.S. Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division, automated menu. He listened, heart hammering, pressing the buttons with precise deliberation. When the line connected to a live representative, his voice came out calm, almost too calm. My service animal was hit intentionally by a local HOA president. I have medical records, I have photos, I have public statements. I want to file a federal complaint under Title II of the ADA. I'm a veteran with documented disability, and I'm not letting this go. He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He documented dates, names, incident number from the responding officer, the screenshots from Karen's post, the HOA fine, everything. He wasn't playing defense anymore. Outside the ICU window, the night was fading. The black sky softened into gray. In a few minutes, the Florida sun would start creeping over the rooftops, lighting up the neat little lawns and the HOA's pristine fences. The world would pretend everything was normal again, but not in Matthew's head, not anymore. He rubbed the back of his neck, rolled his shoulders, checked Ruckus again, still breathing, still fighting. That was all the confirmation he needed. He stood up slow and stiff, cracked his knuckles. The muscles in his back burned from tension. His mind was clearer than it had been in weeks, maybe months. This wasn't just about Karen. This was about every smug official who thought a title gave them power over decency, every rulebook weaponized against the vulnerable, every system that looked the other way. He took one last look at Ruckus, then stepped outside into the parking lot. The air was cool, quiet, waiting. As the sun finally rose over the still sleeping neighborhood of Pinewood Acres, Matthew Green, Marine fighter survivor, was already sharpening his next set of weapons. Not bullets. Not fists. Laws. Evidence. Fireproof resolve. And this time he wasn't going to war for his country. He was going to war for his dog. Karen wasn't sorry. Not even close. If anything, she was outraged, offended that anyone dared to question her authority, her judgment, her self-proclaimed spotless leadership of the Pinewood Acres HOA. So when Matthew posted a simple, gut-wrenching photo on the HOA board's private Facebook group, a shot of Ruckus lying on his orthopedic bed, his leg in a full cast, his service vest draped gently over his side, he wasn't asking for pity. He wasn't even asking for help. He just wrote, "My partner is down. Please keep your cars on the road where they belong." It should have ended there. But Karen couldn't help herself. She never could. Authority to her wasn't a duty. It was a mirror she never stopped admiring. Her comment popped up 5 minutes later, under her name in bold admin blue. *HOA is not liable for vet bills caused by resident negligence. Next time leash your mutt. Silence. Then eruption. Neighbors flooded the thread, some horrified, others emboldened by her tone. One man wrote, "You hit a service dog, Karen. What's wrong with you?" Another fired back, "She's right. Dogs don't belong on sidewalks in this neighborhood anyway." Screenshots of Karen's old posts surfaced within the hour, her rants about fake service dogs being used as therapy crutches, comments mocking veterans who played the PTSD card, even a meme she once shared comparing emotional support animals to stuffed toys for adults. The thread blew up. Mods tried to calm it down, comments were deleted, then restored, then locked. But Karen didn't back off. She doubled down. And then she made the mistake, the one she'd never recover from. An official HOA letter arrived the next morning, folded neatly in a white envelope with the HOA logo on top, formal, cold. Matthew opened it at his kitchen table, Ruckus snoring softly beside him. The first line made his jaw tighten. "As of this notice, the board considers you to be harboring a potentially aggressive animal within Pinewood Acres property lines." He kept reading. Given the recent incident and ongoing disruption caused by this animal's presence, the HOA is issuing a formal citation in accordance with Bylaw 4.17b. Effective immediately, you are fined $500 per day until the animal is removed or relocated outside of community limits. Matthew stared at the page for a full 30 seconds. He didn't move. His pulse didn't even spike. It was past that now. Because this wasn't just petty. It wasn't just callous. This was retaliation. On paper. Signed, dated, branded with the HOA seal like some bureaucratic death threat. They had just accused a federally certified service animal, a golden retriever with 2 national accreditations and full ADA compliance, of being dangerous. They were finding a disabled veteran for his medically necessary support animal, after he had been the victim of a vehicular assault. Matthew didn't see red. He saw federal violations. ADA Title II, Clear-Cut Fair Housing Act, absolutely. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, probably. Retaliatory discrimination against a disabled person, check. Intimidation by housing authority, check again. This wasn't just cruel. It was stupid. Legally suicidal. He grabbed his phone and took photos of the letter, every angle, every signature. He forwarded them to his attorney with one line. They escalated. I'm ready. Then he pulled out the folder where he kept ruckus documents, service dog certification, ADA compliance letters, disability records from the VA, vet statements, photos of the vest, photos of the accident, screenshots of the Facebook comments, screenshots of Karen's mutt remarks, screenshots of her old anti-vet rants. Evidence. Pattern. Intent. He wasn't documenting anymore. He was building a case. And Karen Whitmore? She wasn't just a nuisance now. She was a soon-to-be federally indicted defendant. Matthew looked down at Ruckus, still dozing, bandages clean and tight. His ears flicked in his sleep, a soft reminder that the fight was just beginning. Karen had wanted a fight, but she forgot one critical thing. You don't pick a war with a Marine, especially not one who reads federal law like battlefield strategy. 2 weeks later, the Florida heat was already baking the stucco walls of Pinewood Acres. By 8 a.m. birds chirped from overtrimmed hedges, and sprinklers hissed over chemically perfect lawns. The street was calm, neat, HOA perfect, too perfect. At the end of Juniper Lane, Karen Whitmore opened her front door in yoga pants and a pink tank top that said "Be kind" in gold cursive. Her hair was in a tight ponytail, and her face was fresh with just enough concealer to hide the arrogance. She was balancing an acai bowl in one hand and scrolling through HOA complaints about someone's unauthorized mailbox paint color on her phone. She expected Amazon, maybe Instacart. What she got were 2 federal marshals and one very grim-faced man in a navy windbreaker stamped with 4 bold letters. ADA. The taller marshal asked flatly, "Karen Whitmore?" She blinked, smiled like she might sell them a Pilates package. "Yes," she answered. The second marshal stepped forward without hesitation. "You're under arrest for violating the Americans with Disabilities Act, harassment of a protected individual, and willful injury of a federally protected service animal." For a second, nothing moved. Not the breeze, not the trees, not Karen's expression. Then crash. The acai bowl slipped from her hand and exploded in purple mush on the welcome mat. Her mouth opened, but the words came out broken and tangled. "Wait, what? No, I didn't even mean. I thought it was just a dog. I didn't know he was. He never said anything. I didn't even see the vest." "You saw it." The marshal cut her off, his voice low but carrying weight. "And then you posted about it. And then you fined him. And then you accused a disabled veteran of harboring a dangerous animal." The ADA investigator took out a thick, tabbed, color-coded folder, flipping it open and reading without looking up. Exhibit A. Photo evidence of a certified service animal in full ADA gear. Exhibit B. Facebook comments from the defendant referring to the animal as a mutt. Exhibit C. HOA issued fine in the amount of $500 per day, interpreted as retaliatory action. Exhibit D. Screenshots of past discriminatory statements targeting service animals and veterans. Karen paled, her voice dropping to a desperate whisper. "I didn't mean it like that." The marshal wasn't moved. You don't get to decide intent after the damage is done. You hit a lifeline. Then you tried to bury it in paperwork. Behind them, screen doors creaked open, neighbors peeked from behind blinds, iPhones raised discreetly, then not so discreetly. One HO board member stood frozen on her porch, coffee mug halfway to her lips. Another quietly pulled out his phone and started deleting old posts, unliking comments. Too late. Karen's wrists were cuffed in silence. No shouting, no resistance. Just the sound of steel closing with finality. Can I call someone? She asked weakly, her eyes darting. Maybe we can clear this up. You'll get a lawyer, the marshal said. You'll need one. They escorted her down the front steps while the neighborhood watched. Dogs barked faintly from behind fences. A few doors down, an elderly woman whispered to her husband, "That's the woman who hit the vet's dog, right?" He nodded. "Damn right she is. About time someone did something." Karen was loaded into the back of a black SUV, her ponytail bouncing with every step. No one opened a gate, no one said a word, except one man in gym shorts and sandals who shouted as the doors closed, "Tell the board we're voting next month and you're not on it." Inside the vehicle, Karen finally stopped protesting. She stared straight ahead, the arrogance gone, replaced by raw fear. For the first time, she realized this wasn't a Facebook thread she could moderate, not a newsletter she could edit, not a neighbor she could bully into silence. This was federal law, and it had finally knocked on her door. Karen lawyered up fast. Expensive suit, high-gloss lipstick, a team of attorneys that smelled like boardrooms and billable hours. She walked into the courtroom with the same tight smile she wore at HOA barbecues, like she still believed she was in control, like this was just another neighborhood misunderstanding. Her defense strategy was built on denial. She claimed poor eyesight. She insisted she didn't see the vest. She said the dog startled her, that it lunged, that she was afraid. Her attorney leaned into those words like a crutch: fear, lack of visibility, no clear intent, no malice, just a tragic misunderstanding. But the courtroom didn't buy it. The prosecution wasn't there to play along. They started with the basics. Footage from a Ring camera 2 houses down, muted audio but clear as day. Karen's white Lexus swerving. Ruckus walking calmly beside Matthew in full vest. The impact, the drive-off, no hesitation. Then came the ADA paperwork. Ruckus certification, medical necessity forms, Matthew's disability rating. All dated, signed, legally binding. Then they brought out the screenshots from Facebook and Nextdoor. Karen's own words staring back at her on the courtroom screen. Pets aren't people. These emotional props are getting out of hand. Veterans should stop hiding behind dogs and start dealing with life. Some jurors flinched. Others scowled. One woman in the front row folded her arms like she was holding herself back from spitting. Then came the letter on official HOA stationery, accusing Matthew of harboring a potentially aggressive animal, threatening $500 a day fines, demanding the removal of his service dog from the neighborhood. And that's when the shift happened, because facts are one thing but context burns. The prosecution paused, let the room breathe, then turned to the judge. "We would like to call Mr. Matthew Green to the stand." He rose slowly in full dress uniform, medals gleaming against the dark fabric. Even Karen's lawyer straightened. Matthew took the oath with a calm nod, then settled into the witness chair like he wasn't afraid of anything. Not judges, not strangers, not even what he was about to say. The room hushed. Not a cough, not a shuffle. The prosecution asked, "Mr. Green, in your own words, what is ruckus to you?" He looked down for half a second, then up, voice steady, not loud, not angry. "That dog stopped me from ending my life." The silence leaned forward. "She didn't hit a pet," he continued. "She hit the only reason I still go outside." No tears, no drama. Just truth cut clean and deep. A juror wiped at her cheek with the back of her hand. Another turned toward Karen slowly, eyes narrowed, lips thin. If Karen had any hope left of playing victim, it shattered right then. The judge didn't interrupt. No one objected. The truth, when spoken plainly, is immune to cross-examination. Matthew sat back, folded his hands, and in that moment, surrounded by polished wood and the weight of the law, his calm was louder than anything Karen's lawyer had said all day. The verdict landed like a slow drumbeat. Karen stood pale, her blazer rumpled, hands trembling just enough to betray her. Her lawyer didn't look up. Guilty of willful injury to a federally protected service animal. Guilty of harassment under ADA Title II. Guilty of retaliatory action against a disabled veteran. No gasps, no drama. Just the heavy silence of consequences. Then the judge spoke, calm and precise. Miss Whitmore, you held authority and used it to intimidate a veteran and harm what the law protects. You hit more than a dog. You hit someone's only reason to live. This court sees no room for mercy. The sentence followed: 18 months in federal prison, $42,000 in fines, a permanent ban from any leadership role in any HOA or housing association. Karen didn't cry, but something in her face cracked. Her legs wobbled as marshals led her away. Outside the courthouse, the air was quiet. Matthew wasn't there. He sat instead at the edge of a veterinary rehab center, one hand resting on Ruckus' back as the golden retriever walked a slow lap around the yard, limping, yes, but walking. Alive. Healing. The text said. He's stronger than we expected. Matthew didn't answer right away. He just nodded, eyes steady, voice low. So am I. He didn't need to watch Karen fall. He just needed to see Ruckus rise. 6 months later, Pinewood Acres felt different. Karen's name was gone, erased from HO records, stripped from every document like she'd never existed. The fine she issued to Matthew was formally overturned. The apology letter was short, almost embarrassed. We sincerely regret the error. All penalties voided. But the biggest change stood at the front gate. A new plaque freshly bolted into the stone. This community welcomes all, including veterans, including service dogs. No speeches, no ceremony. Just truth and metal. Matthew saw it during one of Ruckus' rehab walks. The golden retriever still limped, but he walked with a new vest and the same steady loyalty. The air felt lighter, like the place had exhaled. A neighbor passing by asked, "What if the law hadn't backed you?" Matthew didn't flinch. He just smiled. "Then I'd have reminded them who I am, a Marine. And the war wouldn't have been over." He kept walking. Ruckus trotted beside him. Justice didn't bark, it bit.